Spencer. Currently I work at Teach for America as a director of Brooklyn programs, which essentially means I coach current core members, first and second year teachers.
Okay, Griselda Rodriguez, school social worker at East Harlem Scholars Academy.
Thank you.
I think the Afro part is really important in that I'm recognizing the African roots that exist in my community as a Dominican person. And then the Latino part, I think that's been mostly like I've been put in that box, and I'm like, all right. Once you're in America, you just kind of like are placed in that box because of the language you speak, the food you eat, the religion you come from, and I accept that. But I think it's important for me to also like actively recognize something that I think that I've felt in my community we've tried to hide or like not claim for a long time.
What is it?
Our African roots.
Why do you think that's so?
I mean, colonialism, messages of internalized oppression, internalized racism. I've heard there's just a lot of messages growing up around beauty and intellect being really attached to whiteness, and therefore things that are the opposite of that are not something that we want to celebrate or really like claim. So oftentimes things like people who are dark skinned call themselves Indio, in DR at least. I know that that's different in other parts of Latin America. So I think that I just always grew up around those messages that were very implicit. And once I started to recognize the fact that they were false, the damage they were causing, I felt that it was important to do what I can to reclaim it and to send a different message.
Black Dominican. I think I have to put the black in front because just the term black throughout history is like negative. And I'm proud of my blackness. And I'm also proud of my Dominican culture, and that's part of the Latina in me. Like, I speak Spanish, I love the music, I love the food, and it's just embracing it. And also for my own Latino family, that sometimes that whole black sensitivity, the lighter skin, the better, is kind of like, no, I'm black Latina, just to kind of educate people in one front, and in the other to bring just the term black a different value. Like, it is valuable, it is still beautiful. And just think about the childhood. I remember watching to be like, oh mom, I want to be an actress, and I was like, but you gotta bake me a milk because only white people get the role.
Wow.
So it's like those, as a grown up, and thinking the profession that I took, seeing the image represented to me and no one verbalizing to me, no, you are beautiful, like, no, you're good enough. And that's what I try to like bring to my children. That's when they like, man, so what are you? I'm Black Dominican. And they're like, ah! And I love that face because you get them curious, and it's like, no, like, so let's look at the map of the world. Let's look at a picture.
So for example, when I've traveled abroad, specifically when I've traveled in Europe, I'm an American. And that's like, okay, that's the language I speak, the color of my passport, the attitude that I bring. It's very clear that I'm an American. And then, the question of like, well, where are you from comes up often. And then I may get into it. When I've traveled to Latin America, then I'm Dominican because I'm speaking Spanish, or I'm recognizing something that's similar. So I think it really depends on the location, where I am, where the people I'm surrounded by. I would use the term Afro-Latina here in the U.S. I think I think because of my understanding of our relationship with race and with the dichotomy of black and white, I think it's important to claim it here. I would also claim it in DR. Actually, I haven't been to DR in a long time, but I feel like that's something that I would make it very explicit, based also on the history and like just the attitudes that exist over there towards our African roots. I don't think I did. I don't recall celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. I also taught primarily Black Caribbean kids. And I don't know that necessarily means I don't celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, but I think, of course, first couple of years was just arriving. I wasn't even, these months hit me right when it's a month. It's like, oh, it's February 15th. What are we doing for, Black History Month? And I think by my third year was when I started planning And at that point, I was very focused on like, how do I bring in more information about like the African diaspora in the U.S. So I think that if I stayed in the classroom longer, I would have gotten to that point which I was celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. It's something that I was ever aware of, or I recall ever being celebrated in my schools growing up, and so it just wasn't really my consciousness. Like it would just come, and all of a sudden, you know, commercials or people are doing, you know, HBO has a special on some Latino documentary, and it would have been too late at that point as a teacher.
We celebrate cultural awareness, which is in October. We have a big festival. We just try to create committee for the new school year, and one of the committee that came up is Hispanic Heritage Month. So we do celebrate Women's History Month and Black History Month. Last year we did nothing for Hispanic Heritage Month. So I think it has to do with the staff population diversity. I think now we have more Latino people like, hey, what about us? Like, we're not celebrating that. And also because Hispanic Heritage Month falls right early in the year, it's hard to make event happen on the get-go. Because we're trying to get routine set up and all this, what we call priority. That sometime before we realize, okay, we settle, it's like October, November.
I might have gotten to that point in terms of just the way that I was developing consciousness and a little bit more awareness around what are the things that I needed to bring to the classroom. I think I always had a resistance around a month for celebrating my students' culture, or like my culture. I think that when I was in the classroom, I tried to do these things year round in terms of you know, the things we were reading, the things we were showing to kids. So I don't know so much that I would have. I think it's hard. Yeah. I'm not sure. I'll just end it at that.
Like the way I envision we have it, I want to see like all the flags, Spanish-speaking flags surrounding. I want to see people come in their costume, bring your food, and share their heritage, but also kind of talk about the common theme and the differences. Like the Spanish teacher is from Peru, right? But kids are like, Miss Hunter, do you go to Mexico to learn Spanish? She goes, no, I'm from Peru, I speak Spanish. And they're like, Mexico? Again, some of the only thing that's Spanish speaking is Mexico. So it's educating like, what is Latin America and what is being from different ethnicity, different background, share the common language, but yet have different dialect. So what means something to you does not mean something to me. And like, oh.
So geography lessons?
Yes. Where in the world?
Yes.
Maps. We need more of that. That would look, and something I'm very happy, our female culture embrace the cross. So I think we let the cross out, bring it out, definitely to see that reflection. Talk about in the music, like the drum, the history of the drum in our beat that we listen to, the difference in the complexion, where a family make a family tree and trying to trace back our roots back. And a lot of people don't know about, you know, if you're Mexican, Central America, there's Afro in you know. So I think there's a misconception. If you don't have curly hair or pelo malo, then you're not black.
I used to have these books in my classroom that were part English and part Spanish, and I should remember that because I was one of my husband's friends was pregnant. They were having a baby shower, couldn't make it, but I sent her a book that was both English and Spanish. This is a white family. I'm like, your kids should still be learning Spanish. So I remember that that's something that I think was really important in terms of sharing part of myself also with my students, and just celebrating that aspect of my culture of was bringing in language and bringing in different ways of expressing ourselves. I always had like one Latino student in a classroom who could also, you know, share about her experience with that, or his experience. I think that we often do what I've often seen is like these random like major people or like figures to celebrate, right? Cesar Chavez or Sandra Cisneros, or you know, some Pedro Martinez, right? And kids do a report on them or something like that. And I think oftentimes we disconnected from the whole. And one thing that I would that I would encourage, that I would do, is focus on like how the Latino community has influenced, has affected what we consider American culture, what we consider America. I think that sometimes we separate those two things, and you can't have one without the other. You don't have America as it is without Latinos being here for hundreds of years. So that would be my focus today. And in any kind of way that I bring in culture would be, how does the community, how does the whole impact, who we are as Americans today.
Thank you. I grew up in the Bronx. Like, I think Spanish was my real first language. I can't speak it no more, but you gotta navigate. Funniest, ridiculous joke. I'm so sorry. When I was little, I was taking Spanish. I might have been in 3rd grade. I was taking Spanish class, and the teacher said, "How do you say excuse me in Spanish?" And I was like, oh, I know. And she was like, "Okay, how do you say it?" I was like, "Excuse me." Excuse me. Yes. And I was so proud of myself, and she was like, "No." Permiso, I don't know